Yeah, I'm
Okay.
recording.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
So let's go like a verse by verse. So here is verse 1. This verse, like I'm saying, like on Sarai, the wife of Abraham, is still Abraham, and did not bear to him. So here I added any children, and a maidservant or like a maid of Egypt belongs to her, and her name is Hagar. So this is like the Hebrew sentence. There's only one verb in the sentence here, and I have analyzed that. All right, so then next verse. Next verse, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 verbs, like they are marked, by different color here, like according to the sequence. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and number 6, and their analysis are down here. Answers are down here. There's one thing like I need to like point out here is this one, and there's bana, like a meaning to build in the cow stem, but here this one is hefil, so taking the passive voice. So here, I will be built. That is like how I translate that, but the meaning of that, according to the context, means to have children. To build means here to build a family and to have children here. So next, that's the translation of the sentence. And Sarah said to Abraham, behold, now the Lord restrained me from bearing. And now come to my maidservant, perhaps I will be built from her, or I will be having children from her. And Abraham listened to the voice of Sarah. Okay, here is like, here I point out this word. This word seems like, like two prepositions mean, stacked back to back. And here is the 3FSG pronominal suffix. So it is like two prepositions stacked together. This is a sort of unique usage. Let me just point out. And there is one more textual criticism, like issue here. And the Leningrad Codex and multiple medieval manuscripts and several other editions have, this one instead of that one. And here, this one is from Leningrad Codex, and I copy paste the text from BibleWorks. BibleWorks goes with Leningrad Codex, and BHS uses this one. But like the two differences, have just like the vowel pointing difference, but does not affect the meaning of the word. So no exegetical issue was affected by these different readings. Okay, let me move on. Verse number 3, there are 1, 2, 3 different verbs here, and they are all analyzed down here, but this is like, I think it's a typo, I'm sorry. So the analysis and the translation of the verse. And at the end of 10 years, Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan. Sarah, the wife of Abraham, took Hagar the Egyptian, her maidservant, and she gave her to Abraham, her husband, to be a wife or a woman to him. And then next verse, there are stacked with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different verbs. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. The analysis down here and the meaning of the sentence. He came to Hagar and she conceived. And when she saw that she conceived, she slighted or despised her mistress in her eyes. So that is, Hagar got conceived, and she and her mistress, Sarai, has something, like something going on here. And then after seeing that, here is the next verse. The first verb, second, third, fourth, fifth, and the sixth. 6 different verbs, all analyzed down here. All right. And the translation. And Sarah, after seeing, like Hagar, Hagar was despising her, and she said to Abraham, my wrong be upon you. I gave my maidservant into your bosom, and she saw that she conceived, and I am slighted in her eyes. May the Lord judge between you and between me. So here I take this verb, as Joseph, not just prefix. And there's one thing I wish to like point out here. I think here this verb, this is not a verb, but it's just a word. here this word means, I translate like my wrong. Here you can see this word, it has a first common singular pronominal suffix. According to like the I think, I don't remember that's Jesse News or like O'Connor, but they say like this is a kind of genitive of, you can say, object, meaning the wrong or the suffering upon me, the suffering done upon me be upon you. So this was like Sarai said to her husband. And then there's one more like textual criticism like issue. This last word, which has a different spelling, which is this one. You can see, you compare the difference of these two. There's only one yod here, missing here. All right. So BHS, which is like this reading, has one more yod, and the Samaritan Pentateuch has one fewer yod. And these two have the same meaning, so there's no, this is, like insignificant in this verse. And then the next verse, number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. 4 different verbs all analyzed down here. And the translation. And Abraham, after like Sarai like said to her like, may the Lord judge between you, between me. And then Abraham said to Sarah, he said, behold, your maidservant is your hand, do to her the good in your eye. So what it seems to good in your eye, do to her. And then Sarah oppressed her, treating very badly, harshly upon her maidservant, and the maidservant, she fled from her face. So Hagar fled from Sarai. And then the next stage, here is only one verb in this verse. It's only this one. And then the translation is, and the messenger of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, which is by the spring on the way to way of Shur, or on the way to Shur. And then next verse, and then this messenger began speaking to her. So there are 5 verbs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 different verbs here, all analyzed. And then the messenger of the Lord said, Hagar, maidservant of Sarai, where do you come from, and where do you go, or where are you going? And she said, I'm fleeing from the face of Sarai, my mistress. All right, and then the next verse, then the messenger of the Lord said to her again. So here are number 1, number 2, number 3, 3 different verbs, everything down here. And then the messenger of the Lord said to her, like, return to your mistress and humble yourself beneath or under her hands, beneath her. Yeah. So then the messenger of the Lord gave her a command. Let's move on. And then the messenger of the Lord continues speaking to her. So we have here number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. 4 different verbs. 4 different verbs. All right. So, and then the messenger of the Lord said to her, I will surely make your offspring many. So here is the two verbs. They share the same root and the same stem. One is infinitive, like an absolute. Another is prefix. So this is often we translate as I will surely do something. So I will surely make your offspring many, or I will surely multiply your offspring. And the offspring will not be counted because of its multitude. There are so many. So the Lord the messenger seems to give like a Hagar a sort of promise. And then the next verse is here the first verb, second verb, and third verb. Hold on. I forgot to point out. There's number 2. This should be like a point, like a painted in yellow. Sorry. So number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. 4 different verbs. And so like the messenger of the Lord again said to her, behold, you are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son, and you will call his name Ishmael. For the Lord heard your affliction, have heard your affliction, like the bad things happen to like Hagar by Sarai. And then there's like one thing. I listed this word. There's one textual criticism, like issue. Here, this word seems to be a mixing of these two sort of vowel pointings, these two. And the latter, meaning this one, appears in Judges 13:5. But, these textual variants does not affect the meaning of the word. So still, it is, as I said, it is here, just meaning like, and you uh, will give birth. You will bear, or you will give birth. Sorry, this is another like a mistake I need to like correct. All right, then verse number 12. Here are two different verbs, haya, and then here is shakan. So these two verbs are analyzed down here, and the translation is, the messenger is giving a sort of like a prophecy or prediction, and he, meaning the son Ishmael, will be a wild donkey-like man, sort of a wild donkey. This man, the kind of like what's the disposition, you can say, and his hand is at Hor, and the hand of all people is at him, and he dwells before the face of all his brothers. But this "and" is sort of showing some sort of hostility. Like I look at, like different, like grammatical and issues, and say like this "at" here, this word is like expressing that the son of Hagar, meaning Ishmael, he will be an enemy to everybody, and everybody will be an enemy to him. And then verse number 13. Verse number 13 is here. Here has number 1, number 2, and number 3, number 4, number 5. Like 5 different verbs. Everything is down here. I find this verse very difficult to translate, starting from this part. So here the first part is, and she called the name of the Lord, the one who spoke to her, you are a God of sight. So we are up to here, because key is because Amara. So this is, she said, because she said, whether I will still be here. That's my translation. Whether I will still be here after I saw the one who sees me. And this is different from, other English translations. Later I will explain. So here, this is a interrogative he. Here, this word gam means moreover. This means moreover. Halom means here. Then this is like a verb analyzed down here, and this is a participle analyzed down here. I listed 4 different, like three different meanings how this can be translated, this participle. And here means after. So I try to be as literal as I can. So this is the translation I give. Later I'll explain why I adopt this translation. And then there are 3 places where this verse has, like a textual criticism, issues. So the first one is here, Ra'im. Ra'im, this word, BHS has, this word, which means sight. The Samaritan Pentateuch has meaning like just ra'ah. And this is, like the cow stem verb, meaning he saw. And the Septuagint and Latin Vulgate has roi, meaning it will be the same as, here, this participle. And the one who sees me, he saw me, things like that, seeing me. And here's the analysis. And after the analysis, I said, though there's no doctrinal bias here, the Septuagint and Latin Vulgate reading adds more personal feelings here. Personal feeling, like he sees me. This is kind of like, to me, this is more personal and more emotional. Adds more personal feelings into this narrative, and which I believe this suits Hagar's situation. Though like BHS, this the one picture like is more favored, but like on the Septuagint or Vulgate translation, they have, some value in adopting this. All right. Then the next one, The second issue in this verse is this here. It has been proposed that this phrase here, I saw, should be this thing. I saw God and alas. Here, this Elohim is God, Ra'ati, it is I saw, and here this Vahehi, this alas. So this other reading could be translated, I saw God after he saw me. Alas, am I even, something? This is closer. This is closer to like the English translations as you find in perhaps like an IV, an AS, King James, And here is the analysis. And I said, the other reading offers an interesting text for what Hagar has said, but this alas word, this word seem to be alien to the context. So I favor BHS instead of the other like a proposed reading. And the last like textual criticism issue is here. For the word, here the last participle, here is like the meaning. In BHS, the Samaritan Pentateuch has, again, like the cow he saw. And the Septuagint has this Greek meaning, he appeared to me and he was seen by me. All right, so this is the analysis that I gave. And then the Septuagint reading simply focuses on the messenger appeared to Hagar, but did not mention that the messenger saw Hagar, which, when she said like God saw me, is a kind of like expressing God's care for her. But this kind of like a notion, like God sees her and God is caring for her. And this seems to be absent in the Septuagint reading. And this pronominal suffix again adds more personal flavor to the text than the Samaritan Pentateuch. Here, Samaritan Pentateuch sees. All right. And okay, let me go to the next verse. Next verse, there are two verbs analyzed down here, and here, down here. And on such account, there is like the missing, here's like the subject is missing. So it is assumed to be like a third person. So, or perhaps this could be translated in the passive. On such account, it is called, or on such account, he called. So, but I use the active voice instead of the passive voice. The well, this one, which is the meaning of it is here. And behold, it is being between Kadesh and Beret, two places. In this verse, and also like in the previous verse, like in verse number 3, I think, may the Lord judge between you, between me. And when like people like in the Hebrew, when they are using this like on this preposition bin, to indicate, there are like two parties, like functioning, this word functioning as the English word between. Often they have to repeat twice, here and here. Also same in the previous verse, like may the Lord judge between you, between me. So again, twice in the Hebrew text. Here is one textual criticism like analysis. Here are two in this verse. The word here, which is like a participle, in BHS. In the Samaritan Pentateuch and other medieval manuscripts, still they adopt like a he saw, and the Septuagint reads Idon, which means I saw. And the analysis down here. All right, and the comment I gave is the name of the fountain or the well can be translated the well of the living one, he saw me, which is, BHS, or the well of the living one, he saw, which is follow the Samaritan Pentateuch, or the well of the living one, I saw, which is Septuagint. All right, and the Septuagint seems to shift the focus of the messenger to what Hagar did, and the Samaritan Pentateuch does not have the same personal feature as that of BHS. So I favor this one. And then BHS has more, like personal flavor, and also like the emphasis is given on Hagar instead of the messenger of the Lord. Right. Then there is a next one. Okay. The next textual criticism issue is for this word hine, which means like behold. The Targum said add like another he. I mean, perhaps this word, should be sorry. This one is I don't know like how to type in all these. Like this should be Latin. This should be a Latin word, and here um, they said like also like this word like he, she, or it should be inserted. So after this is analysis, after the insertion, perhaps it could be read upon this account it is called the well, the well of the living one, which he saw me, and behold, it is between Kadesh and it is between Beret. I mean, if you add this it or you remove this it does not seem to be too like serious. It just like makes like reads more smoothly, so it does not affect the meaning or any doctrinal thing of this verse. Then verse number 15. Verse number 15, there are 1, 2, 3 different verbs all analyzed down here. And Hagar gave birth to a son to Abraham, and Abraham called his name, whom Hagar bore, Ishmael. And then the last verse of this chapter, only one verb here. And Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bore the son Ishmael to Abraham. So that's the end of the verse by verse analysis. Now let me go to the diagram. So this story can be divided into the following parts. The first part is Sarah gave Abraham advice from verse number 1 to verse number 3. So this is the first level. Here, the second level. The first level is Sarah, the wife of Abraham, did not bear to him any children. I used my own translation. And a maidservant of Egypt belongs to her, and her name is Hagar. So this one is subordinate to that level. And the second verse, and then Sarah said to Abraham, behold, now the Lord restrained me from bearing any children to you. And then this is the reason. Now the second level, this is the first level is the speaking. Second level is the state. She's stating the reason, and then she is like the plea or a plea or a command. And then the fourth level is like the purpose. Perhaps I will be built or having children from her. And then back to the first level, and Abraham heeded or listened to the voice of Sarai. And this one, verse number 3, that's at the end of 10 years, Abraham dwelt in the land of Canaan. This is like showing like the time, which should be I think subordinated to the next verse. This is just showing the time. This is the main clause. And Sarai, the wife of Abraham, took Hagar the Egyptian, her maidservant, and she gave her to Abraham, her husband, to be a wife or woman to him. So that's the first part. The second part, it is the conflict between the two women, Sarah and Hagar. So these starting from verse 4 to verse number 6. And here is the analysis. As you can see, the first level, the second level, the third level. I need to hurry up. I only have 4 minutes. So the third part is like Hagar's encounter with the messenger of the Lord. So starting from verse 7 to verse 14. So the first level, the second level. So these 3 verses, the first, the second, and the third level. And the first, the second, the third, and the fourth level. All right. So these are the 4. This is like on this part. And then the birth of Ishmael, which is the last part of the story, in verses 15 and 16. The first level, and then the second level. Okay, so this ends the story diagram, and then the exegetical insights. So on this one, I'm using no longer my translation. I'm using this is New King James version. So as you can see, I here I put some like words in red, and here I said, like in this, starting from verse number 2, all the way to verse number 8, whenever there's a kind of identity term like a maid, wife, husband, mistress, these things mentioned, this seems to be something wrong, uh, and the Sarai should not give her maid to her husband, and especially like when the text is mentioning like Sarai's identity wife, she is seems to be this is something a wife should not do. So the wife should not give her maid to her husband and to be his wife or his, and then the the maid should not despise her mistress, and then the here no hold on, and then the mistress should not deal harshly with her maid, and then the maid it should not flee from her mistress. So if everything like seems to be everything is done right, then all this kind of um, bad things should not happen. So I said like all people forgot their place and did something that they should not do. All these identity of relation terms like show like something seriously wrong occurred in this household that should be avoided. Okay, that's like this part. I said this part. And number 2, and starting from verse number 13, I think this is my own translation. I mean, here I said like the messenger of the Lord knows like about everything, and he should serve as a representative of the Lord. And then based on what the reaction of Hagar, like on what she said, the Lord really cared about her. That's the second thing I saw from the text. And also based on the same text from what Hagar said, we can infer that she is surprised and she would even survive, because it seemed that as a pregnant woman who is fleeing in the wilderness and there's no one beside her to give her aid, and the text doesn't mention like she brought any food with her. She's just like fleeing from her household, from her mistress. And then on this account, the chance of to survive is very low or very slim. And then, so her words after seeing the Lord's messenger can be seen as a way to show her gratitude, and she can, she would not die. She would, at least she can survive. Then the next verse, next part, and then she called the name of the Lord, the one who spoke to her, you are a God of sight. Okay, I'm analyzing this, like verse. The name Hagar to God can be translated, you are a God who sees me, which is following NIV or King James, or you are a God of sight, this is my own translation, or you are, oh God, my beholder, this is Young's literal translation, or you are a God who sees, this is, New American Standard Version. And these these different translations differ on the usage of the word this ra'ah. Okay, and then if this word should be taken as noun in the construct form, then because I'm following, like this is my own translation following the Bible works, and then this word should mean, this word means sight. And then NIV, King James Version, Young Living Translation, and NAS seem to treat the word as a participle. And if the yod, if this yod is seen as the first common singular pronominal suffix, then NIV, King James, and YLT can be correct, and the NAS translation seem to ignore the pronominal suffix. However, I said the vowel pointing does not support the reading of this word as a participle, though the English translation seems to suggest it. Okay, that's the fourth thing. The fifth and the sixth thing, and the reason why Hagar called God the way she did was also listed in verse number 14. So in verse number 14 is, on such account, he called the well Beer Lahai Roy, this like on the well of the living one who saw me, and behold, it is between Kadesh and Beret. So, and this verse is very difficult to translate. I would translate is whether I think I think I made a mistake. This should be based on verse number 13, whether I will still be here after I saw the one who see me. That is my own translation. Or after he saw me, I saw all the. After he saw me and I saw all these, will I even be here anymore? That's a different translation, my own translation. And this could explain that her later like return to her household, to Abraham, to Sarai. So she saw all this like God is caring for her. Then she heeded like the command of the messenger of the Lord. Then she returned and humbled herself under Sarai's hand. And then the last issue on this account here, this one, many English versions seems to just transliterate this instead of translate the name of the meaning of the well in verse number 14, calling it as Bir Laharoi, Bir Laharoi, same, like just, with or without the dashes. The only exception is Young's Little Translation. Young's Little Translation translate it as the well of the living one, my beholder. And this is also an evidence of Hagar showing her gratitude to God. So that concludes my presentation. Yeah, and that's all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Almost 32 minutes. You did a good job in terms of keeping the time. All right, so I want to just open the chance to our students. Any comment or any question?
I have one.
Yes,
Amos.
please.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, in your exegetical insight number 4.
Number 4, yes.
Exegetical insight, yeah, number 4. Mention translated it as the God of sight, your own translation. You then go on to say these different translations differ on the use of the word. Was there anything else that could have been translated as?
As what?
As sight instead of sight, or the God who sees me. Was there anything else that you came across?
When I did research on this verse, I put my my cursor on this word in Bible Works, and the Bible Works says this is the meaning, just a noun in construct form. So that's one. And then I checked different an English translation that I saw they are all treating this word as participle. So I listed down here. So that's the only thing I saw on this this word. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else?
I have, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
So after studying this, we know this is a story about Hagar and try to give her Sarah to give her maid servant to Abraham to have a son. Generally, we know the story like that way. So after studying this, any significant change, so we have to take note from your study all those things.
I think the most important thing I learned from the text is Hagar's response to to the messenger of the Lord, what she said. I think uh, let me go back to the verses, I think, or perhaps here is better. Uh, here, like she is showing I am at a point of just on the verge of death. I am pregnant, I am chased away by my mistress. I didn't have I didn't know anybody. I have nothing to. I'm in the wilderness. I'm with baby. I am about to die. And then at this point, when I am at my lowest point, I am about to die. Then the Lord appeared to me. He saw me. He saw my affliction, and he cared about me. So then I will be showing some sort of gratitude to him. So that's the thing. From the response of Hagar, we can see that the Lord is truly a God who cares about um, many, you can say like oppressed and marginalized, people. And there's one thing like we learn. And another is, like previously, perhaps many of the sermons and, study focus on, like just the flow of the story, but like didn't pay attention to um, the difficulty that like Hagar is facing, and also so that is something perhaps ignored in previous studies, and also like the name of the well is worth mentioning, the worth of the living one who saw me. So that is a kind of like testimony of this story. This is a testimony of like the Lord is living, and the Lord is still caring for uh, the people like living in this world. So that's the thing like perhaps like could be learned from the story.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just a question also, Doctor, to Amos. If Brother
Yeah, go
Amos,
ahead.
do you know the meaning of the name of Hagar?
I don't know the meaning of her name. Sorry.
Yeah, I think Hagar means in Arabic Hagara, meaning to flee or run away.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, I thought when you are explaining your exegetical analysis, it came to my mind that maybe being a mistress, uh, Hagar unable to bear the yoke of humiliation and flees from her identity as a mistress. So that's what I come out to my mind when you're explaining.
Okay.
Just additional. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So this seems to be, when you give a person's, name, you can look at the meaning. Then perhaps like what he or she is doing it's just, like a reflection of that meaning. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get what's your inspiration why you choose the passage.
Excuse me. Can you please repeat?
Why you choose the passage Genesis chapter 16? What
Trans
inspired you to
what? Excuse me.
what inspired you to choose Genesis 16?
The reason I chose Genesis 16, previously I want to do Genesis 15, but 15 is too long. So the Dr. Kim said, like the length of the analysis should be like above 10, like below 20 verses. So 16 suits me. Then I chose 16. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because I choose Genesis 15. That's why it's a
Yeah.
continuation of your
okay.
analysis. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have one more question.
Yes.
All right. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So when we see here in this story, God is also promising with Hagar for Ishmael. So it's like when I just read this passage, the Abraham's covenant, Genesis 12, God's promise is now it comes to mind, and so just like my also as you someone is like it can be like theological question might be. So when you study this one, do you see some differences between God's promise with Abraham and Ishmael?
I think there's one thing. Um, in some sort, like God's promise to Abraham, like saying like your offspring would be, numerous as the stars in heaven, things like that. That in some sense is realized in the promise, like also given to Ishmael here, like um, where here, I will surely multiply your offspring many, and it will not be counted because of its multitude. So, God's promise in part is fulfilled in the promise given to Ishmael, because physically speaking, Ishmael and the descendants of Ishmael are still Abraham's offspring. So if they have there are many, and then that is fulfilling the sort of the promise given to Abraham like earlier. However, there are some other parts of like Abrahamic promise. Like I will hold on. Let me think. I need to turn back to Genesis 15. Genesis 15. So and sorry, like there are some other sorts of like uh, issues like on concerning the promise of the promise like given to Abraham. Then, for example, like on this part, for certainty, like these things, for certain, like the descendants will be strangers in the land that is not theirs and will serve him. This part, like 400 years, this kind of thing is absent in the promise like given to Ishmael. And then um, also uh, what else? Let me see. Let me see. Um, and also not just in Genesis 15, but in Genesis, I think Genesis 12, when the Lord first called Abraham and gave him this kind of like I'll make you a great nation, things like that. These kind of thing. I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse him who curses you, and in your and you all the families of the earth shall be blessed, and also this kind of thing. It these kind of like elements are not present um in the promise given to Ishmael. So you can say the Abrahamic covenant is not fulfilled in Ishmael. That's my answer.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Amos, you did a good job, and especially, this passage is quite interesting because we tend to focus on, of course, the covenants of Abrahamic covenant.
Mhm.
But it's quite interesting for me to see even the word of la'ah. Of course, there are a lot of issues in terms of textual criticism or syntax, but it's quite interesting to see the significance of the word la again. So God sees, whether you like it, or you just consider it as a noun or participle. Probably when you want to put it as a noun, even as Pierce just asked the question, instead of God of sight, God of seeing makes better sense to me. If you want to just choose, of course, the seeing is a participle form. But if we really highlight the participle meaning, then we may say God is the one who sees. Okay. But if we really want to put noun meaning, then could be God of seeing would make better sense. So from the perspective of Hagar, she said, God is really seeing my life. And isn't it interesting? It just happens to the life of Sarah and Abraham. God sees, God provides. That's just really amazing. And I like the last question of Phineas. I think that is a good attitude to start reading the passage because if I read Genesis chapter 16, verse 11, it says, NIV goes like, the angel of the Lord said to her, you are not with child and you will have a son. So it sounds like really promising. It's the same as the Abrahamic covenant, but there is a difference here. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. Another version said, because the Lord has given heed to your affliction, and has heard your affliction. So it sounds like, the reason why God chose to bless the life of Hagar is because of her petition. But when it comes to Abrahamic covenant, it begins with God's sovereign will to bless and choose Abraham. Of course, Abraham's life was blameless and he was kind of a special man. But there is a great importance in the life of Abraham. in terms of God's sovereignty in His selection. So I think that is quite different. So when God wants to bless um, Ishmael and Hagar's life, the petition of people, is quite important. So we can see both sides in the story of this Genesis story, right? So the importance of God's selection, sovereignty, and at the same time human petition, and that's going to be really important theological point if you really want to dig into. Okay, so thank you, and then you did a good job, Amos. All right, then let's move on to next person. According to the list that I have, Albert is the second one. So Albert, let's do it.
I can go so I can get rid of it.
Okay, then Samson, you want to do it right now?
Yeah,
Okay,
go ahead.
Samson, let's do it then.
Okay.
Just making sure to finish everything within 30 minutes. Okay.
Okay. I think I'll need less time than that.
Okay, go ahead.
So yeah. Um, so the text that I looked at was Psalms 27, verse 1 to verse 14, and so it starts off with what the question asked was, if the Lord is with me, whom shall I fear? And this was by David. So it goes by David, the Lord my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is, sorry, I gotta move the pictures to the side. The refuge of my life, whom shall I fear? And so in this text, from what I gathered from it, or what I interpret it as, is that as long as the Lord is with me, for he is my light, he's my salvation, and he's my refuge, then what is there to be afraid of? And then verse 2 tells us, sorry, evildoers approach me to devour my flesh, my adversary and my enemy. They stumbled and they have fallen. So the question is, should I fear the enemy who are trying to devour me? Now, um so that's the question that I asked, is, should I fear the enemy who are trying to devour me? And even though they were approaching David, or in what he saw was that the enemy was approaching him, in every way they, even though they came with evil intent, but in the end they failed in their attempt to attack David. And then the next one is, should I be afraid when the enemy surrounds me, or when war is waged against me? So in verse 3, I translated it to, if an army shall encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. If war shall arise against me, this I'm confident. So in this context, if we're thinking about what he said in verse 1, which he says, whom shall I fear? Because the Lord is my light, my salvation, and my refuge. In here, David puts into practice, and he says, um, I will have no fear, even though the enemy surrounds me. And he says, even if war is waged against me, in this I'm still confident, as long as I have God with me. And then verse 4, I translated to, the one thing I have asked from the Lord, I shall seek. I remain in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to look at the beauty of the Lord and to reflect in his temple. Now, when I read this, and the way I interpret it as, is, this is David proving that he believes that God is his refuge, and not only does he hide in the Lord, but um, he also longs to go to the temple of the Lord, to spend all the days of his life in the house of the Lord. Now, in this one, the word for that, I, instead of putting inquire like the other translations, I put reflect in his temple. The only reason why I put it down, just because out of the two, I kind of like the way reflect kind of talks about sitting and meditating. The other translations that I saw was they used inquire in his temple, which is to ask about to seek things in the temple. But I decided to use the word reflect in his temple because it gives more of a it speaks more to having that peace in this temple where you're reflecting on God, but you're also it's almost like you're meditating in him in the temple because there is peace. And verse 5, the Lord is my refuge. So in verse 5, when I translated it, I translated to, for he will hide me in his shelter in the day of evil. He will hide me in a secret place of his tent. On a rock he will lift me. This one I really like the reason why I like this portion of scripture is again is talking about how David is seeking the Lord as his refuge and how the Lord is willing to hide him in his tent. But my favorite part is not only that he hides him in the tent, but there's a secret place in the tent. Um, when we talk about the secret place, there are other translations that would use the word secrecy. So it's more of a real intimate there's a intimate sense when we talk about this secrecy. So not only are you hiding in his house, but you're hiding in a secret place in secrecy away from evil or whatever is trying to attack you. And this speaks to that sense of how God, the Lord is his refuge. And also how he talks about on a rock he will lift me, and this talks about the stability that the Lord has or gives to us when we are hiding from our enemies. He puts us on this solid rock or a solid foundation in which we it'll be hard for us to be attacked in. And then verse 6, my translation is, and now he will lift my head above my enemy surrounding me, and let me sacrifice in his tent sacrifices of shouting. Let me sing and make music to the Lord. And this kind of goes back to the part where we talk about the Lord is my salvation. Um, but before that, when he talks about how he lifts my head above my enemy that's surrounding me, it kind of goes back to what he was talking about in verse 3, in which even though the enemy encamps me or surrounds me, I will have no fear. Now, because they are encamping him or they are surrounding him, he doesn't have fear because he know that the Lord will lift him above his enemy that are surrounding him. And the part about the Lord is my salvation. While he is um, while he is in the tent or in the refuge of the Lord, he is able to make sacrifice or give offerings of thanksgiving unto the Lord. He's able to sing and make music to the Lord because he knows that the Lord has saved him, and um and thus the Lord is his salvation. And verse 7, were translated. This one I kind of I kind of like this one is so it says listen to my voice, Lord, I shall call, so favor me and respond to me. Now in this one is shows the desperation of David for the Lord's protection, in which it's in which he shouts out to the Lord. It's in the imperative form where he says, "You, sorry, listen, Lord," and he's demanding the Lord. He's demanding the Lord, listen to me, Lord. May you favor me and also to respond to me because I will call unto you, but I want you to favor me and I want you to respond to me. And it shows how important it is for David to have that protection of the Lord um, in his life at this point. And verse 8, I translated into, in regard to you, my heart said, seek my face, your face, Lord, I will seek. And this one it's David's realization to that in order to be covered by God, he needs to seek God's face, and it comes from his heart. It's not just from anywhere, but it comes from his heart. It's not just a service of lips or anything like that, but it's from deep within his heart in his desperation to be protected. And then verse 9, David's desperation for God's protection. So I translated to, you shall not hide your face from me. You shall not turn in anger on your servant. You have been my help. Do not leave me or forsake me, God of my salvation. Now, in this one, again, it's just David explaining his desperation for God's protection. Doesn't want God to turn away from him. Doesn't want God to hide his face from him. But he needs God's constant protection um, uh, over and over again. And then verse 10, for the Lord is my refuge. Verse 10, for my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord will receive me. So in this one, it's a kind of an exaggeration in a sense, or just uh, yeah, it's kind of an exaggeration in a sense, but he uses this to paint the picture of how the Lord is his only refuge. That everything, even his family or people who are supposed to love him, will be able to turn away, but the Lord is a solid rock. The Lord is a solid refuge for him, and that's why he uses this terminology. And then verse 11, and David seeks God. So in this one, I translated it, Lord, teach me your ways and lead me in a level path because of the enemy. So now, not only does he, in order to seek the Lord, he goes deeper by asking him to teach him his ways. He asks him to give him a straight path rather than going uphill or downhill. And the reason being is because there is an enemy that is watching him, and yeah. And so David's talking about how he seeks God in this one. And then verse 12, uh, do not do not give me to my adversary's will, for false witnesses have risen against me and breathe out violence. And so this one I just put with God whom shall I fear. Um this one I believe it should be connected with verse 13 in order to understand verse 13. So verse 13 goes uh the way I translated is, unless I have believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. So the reason why I believe that these two should be connected is so he says, do not give me to my adversaries will, for false witnesses have risen against me and breathe out violence. But in verse 13, um most of the English translations don't translate the word unless. I think only the NAS, but I forgot how he translates it to. But so I put it as more of a conditional sentence in which he says, do not hand me over to the enemy's will, unless I have believed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. So this speaks pretty much to the amount of trust that he has in God. If God is not with him, then he's not willing to be handed over to the enemy's will. But so that's why I added the word unless, because I believe it is a what do you call it again? Conditional sentence. And then the last verse is verse 14, and I translated it as, wait upon the Lord, be strong that he may strengthen your heart, wait upon the Lord. And that's what David is just talking about. That's all he'll do, is he'll wait upon the Lord before he does anything rash. And yeah, and that's all I got for you guys today. And anybody got any questions?
Wow.
Okay, Mister, no questions.
So fast. All right. Anyway, yes, yeah. Open to you all. Please go ahead. Any
You can
question?
message
Any
me your
comment?
questions. Okay, thank you guys.
You wanna just close? Okay. Uh, um. It's quite interesting. You know, of course, we're all familiar with this passage, but when you read it again carefully, analyzing all the Hebrew verbs, and it comes with different feeling. You know, you already understand what is going on, you know, the contents, but the level of the emotional status of Abraham could be somehow differently felt and understood. So Samson, just the same question. You realize a lot of contents, and you understand most of the contents here. But what makes you inspired about this passage, and what specific lesson you have learned from this passage through your study of Hebrew language? Perhaps it might be better for you to deal with some exegetical significance or anything that you are not really aware of, but the thing that you just begin to see through your study. And interestingly, you didn't really include any syntactical issues and even statistical analysis. Just that you put the title and question. The way you put the title as a question is quite interesting. But did you do the contextual textual criticism and syntactical issues as well?
Just the textual one, I didn't do the textual criticism. I did the syntactical one and the syntactical analysis.
Issues? You
Yeah,
didn't
the
do
issues.
that.
The
So you missed two parts?
just the no, just the critical textual criticism. I didn't do that one, but the syntax and the clause, that one I did.
So you said you did syntax and syntactical analysis,
Yeah,
and then you didn't do textual criticism.
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, then thank you for the clarification. What is the new lesson that you just realized? The thing that you were not able to see before?
As far as the thing that I kind of realized, I there's more the thing that the reason why I wanted to pick this scripture was more because of verse 7. I really like how it was just new to me to see someone talking to God in that sense, in which he's commanding God what to do, and yeah. So at first, I was kind of trying to see if there was like animosity, like why is he talking to God like that? But when I read the whole thing in context and stuff like that, and I realize it's just David's desperation that forces him to cry out unto to God in the way that he did, and yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. You know, to me, it's quite interesting, especially verse 7 and 5, regarding the translation of the word ekra. And, you know, NIV translates, hear my voice when I call, O Lord. So the, what is it, imperfect prefix form is attached to when. But the literal translation is hear or Lord, hear my voice, O Lord, I will call. So somehow, I don't know if it is really proper for us to put the word when there. So there must be some issues actually. So if we say, hear my voice when I call, you know, it sounds different. Hear my voice and I will call. Do you see the difference? And when I just use the word when, then it's very conditional phrase. Lord, when I pray, listen to my prayer, right? But you just stay with the literal translation, then it sounds like, hear my voice, Lord. I will call. How does it sound? So somehow that is the significance of dealing with this literal translation. And I think it's quite impressive that you mentioned the usage of the Hebrew word, the secret place. And I think it's quite a good point to realize. Although you have not really pointed out a lot of insightful things, I like the way you approach because instead of relying on the simple meaning, like in the secret of his tabernacle, something like the first guy is you are running away, and then he is hiding you in a safe place. But if you really pay attention to the usage of the word secret, and even it refers to it has something to do with protection and hiding place, but it also provides the meaning of shelter. So you can just develop the idea, and you can just have the connotation that it's not only protecting but providing rest. Even you can just go further to the idea mentioned by Samson that you can develop intimacy in terms of a relationship. So then this is what you can just point out through your study. And in light of that, Samson, it's a very simple thing, but you can really make great impact you know, on your preaching, highlighting the specific part that was not really recognized by others. Okay, so you need to really utilize this type of study. So yeah, good job. And I think this Psalm 27 is really beautiful passage. I like it, and it's just like petition. So that's why we can see a lot of imperative forms and judicial forms. So perhaps we can learn a lot of things from David's, petition. Okay, so that's quite interesting passage. Okay, so then let's move on to Albert.
You guys can see my screen?
Yeah, yeah.
Give me a thumbs up so you can see my screen. Okay. Um, okay, I will start like not in order because I know that our professor is looking at how we're going to use what we learn in this Hebrew class and apply it not only our lives, but how we're going to apply that one in our sermon, the message that we're going to deliver to the people. And I believe that all of us that we have Bible works. So for me, I leave the parsing and analyze at the end of my presentation. So when we got enough time, and then we can go to that one. But let's go straight to the textual criticism. That would be number 4. Okay, textual criticism, Isaiah 52. Okay, in this one, I have 3. I divided it 3. The first one is, let me do something first. This one is very much green. Okay. First one, explain the information given by the textual apparatus. Second, discuss which reading is most likely the original. Discuss if there is any exegetical significance found from the variant reading. So the first one we're going to deal with in Isaiah 52, verse 2, and number 8, in the letter A. The translation is, shake yourself from the dust, arise captive Jerusalem, loose the bonds from your neck, captive daughter of Zion. As you can see here, I highlight this word captive. It mentioned twice here. So we can go to that one. So the explanation of the information given by the textual apparatus. So the Linkrat poetics of the Hebrew Old Testament, multi or several manuscripts of the Hebrew OT, several edition. This is very interesting. Several edition of the Hebrew OT. It's happening in this word. We know this is share. It has been proposed. Now, we are going to go to the discussion of the reading of the most likely the original. I assume that the reading will be the original is the PHS because the various reading did edit in order to make this portion of the scripture smooth reading. Now, we're going to see here, the PHS used the word Chevy or Chevy, which means captivity. But in variant readings, use the word Cheviah, which means captive. In Holiday Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, explain Cheviah, one is taken, captive. You can find it in page 358. So the two words sound the same, but the meaning is different from each other. As we can see here, I highlight the Chevy here and Cheviah here. I did a little research about why Isaiah mentioned this word 2 times in this verse and why he used this in a different form. Look at these 2 words. The Chevy is captive. So it could be means in a person taken and held as a prisoner, especially by an enemy in war. But captivity, a state or condition of being in bondage to one's enemy, especially if this involves deportation to a foreign land. The term captivity is commonly used to describe 2 periods when the nation of Israel is mentioned 722 BC and Judah 605 BC and later were taken away from their native island into exile. So the usage of these 2 words, oh my, don't freeze. Of these 2 words in a sentence, Chevy, the PHS uses is as a noun, a word used to identify any of a class of people, places, or things. It also common noun. But the Cheviah or Cheviah, the PHS uses it as an adjective, a word or phrase naming an attribute added to or grammatically related to a noun to modify or describe it. So in my own understanding, this word Cheviah is describing this word Chevy or Chevy. Okay, we are going to the next criticism. Isaiah 52, 5a. Explain the information given by the textual apparatus. The Ketib use milipo, which means who towards me, but the PHS use malipo, which means what I have here. So the discuss of the exegetical significance found from the variance reading, what is asking for information specifying something, the use of what in the sentence, the Lord was asking for his properties or assets. It is referred to as the nation of Israel and and it fits
Albert, can you hear me? Albert? Okay. I don't know what happened. He must be coming in soon. regarding your assignment, do you have any question? Especially those who are preparing your presentation. Any question? Is everything clear? James, where are you? Yeah, should
Yes, sir.
be yeah, turning on the video always. Okay. All right. Is everything going well with your preparation? You know, I know there are a lot of information that you cannot really understand, but why the reason I am doing this is because I want to really see if my students learn something, especially in terms of the utilization of these technical skills, you know, syntactical issues, analysis, and textual criticism. Even though you just do your study, sometimes you cannot really see any significant exegetical point, but you need to really continue and you will be able to increase and develop your skills. And you will be able to present something very important, significant. Hey, Arbot, what happened?
Um, I think I need to send you my PowerPoint so you can. My laptop is playing up.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
quite slow.
Yeah, it's kicking me out.
All right, then
Let me try
because
again.
of your
please.
PowerPoint?
I'm not too sure, Doctor.
Yeah, just try again. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Arbot,
Yes.
are you planning to deal with every single texture tricks you mentioned here? Or you
Sir?
want to just highlight whatever is important? Do you
Yes.
plan to deal with every single texture criticism? I think
will
it's better for
highlight.
you to deal with just the important things.
Yes, yes,
Okay?
yes.
If you
yes.
think that's not really important, then just skip it. Okay? Yeah, let's do
Okay.
it.
Okay. Okay. Isaiah 52. This is verse 6. The usage of the word lakin. Okay. Um, the word lakin is absent in a reading of one or several Hebrew manuscripts from the Quran, the Septuagint, the Syriac version of the Old Testament, and the Vulgate. I assume that the PHS is the original text because the variant reading omit this word lakin to have a smooth reading. Significant point, the PHS have lakin twice in it, and this word is a combination of two words. As Brown Drivers Briggs Hebrew and English lexicon, le is a preposition which means two, four words, and kin is an adjective which means so, thus, which. I have checked the New King James Version, New American Standard Bible, NASB 1995, Royal Study Bible, all of them, they translate the word lakim, therefore. So therefore, meaning in the English dictionary, for that reason. If we are going to replace the word therefore in the phrase for that reason, then the translation will be, for that reason shall know my people, my name, for that reason in that day, that is I who speak, here I am. So significant exegetical points for that reason shall know my people, my name. So it's referring to the captivity will be the reason for the nation of Israel to know who Yahweh or Adonai, the Lord, it is. And this one, it's referred back to verse 5. And the second for reason in that portion, it's going to be in that day, that is I who speak, here I am. This it's talking about the day that Adonai or the Lord restore his people or the nation of Israel. You can find this one in verse 9, and it's referred to verse 9. So we're going to verse 9. The translation, break forth into singing together. you waste place of Jerusalem, for has comforted the Lord his people, he has redeemed Jerusalem. You can see here, we are dealing with two Jerusalem. There's one here and one here. As you can see, the Hebrew that I copy and paste, that's one here and one here. So let's move on. Explain the information given by textual apparatus. So one or several middle manuscripts of the Hebrew OT use the word Yisrael or Israel instead of Jerusalem. This is very interesting. If we change the BHS reading in to the variant reading, it will be break forth into singing together, you waste places of Jerusalem, for has comfort the Lord, his people, he has redeemed Israel. From this reading, we learn the scriptures refer to two things. One is Jerusalem is the city and Israel is the nation. So these two will fit perfectly in this translation. As we can learn from the previous, the literal translation from the PHS, we can see that the word Jerusalem is mentioned twice. But in this issue, this criticism, we can see that Jerusalem appear once and Israel appear at the end. And this one will be mean Jerusalem is the city and Israel is the nation. We now understand that the scripture means the Lord had comforted the city, that would be Jerusalem, and redeemed or saved the nation, Israel. Let's move on. Okay, we on Isaiah 52:13, letter A, explain the information given by the textual apparatus. The word yarum, to be high or exalted, is absent in the Septuagint. The PHS is, I can assume the PHS is the original because it has many things to describe the servant. Okay, let's look at this. The description of the servant in the PHS, it has described in 4 categories. Let's see this one. First, he will prosper. Second, he will be high or exalted. And third, he will be lifted up. Fourth, he will be very high. And this fourth, the second one has been this one has been absent from the Septuagint. The number 3, he will be high or exalted. The PHS got all the prophecies about the servant, but the Septuagint is missing one important thing about the servant. But the question is, who is the servant? The verse 12 will answer it. The Lord will go before you and your rear guard, the God of Israel. Let's move on to verse 14. Explain the information given by the textual apparatus. The one or several medieval manuscripts of the Hebrew OT, the Syriac version of the Old Testament, and the Targum uses the word aviv, which means upon you or at you. The PHS, in my own opinion, is the original, and I don't see any significance in this one compared to the variant reading. Okay, 15. Okay, explain the information given by the textual apparatus. The Septuagint BRB, it has been proposed Yise, sprinkle, instead of Yise, close to leap. The Septuagint, I can assume, is the original reading. Why? Many English Bible translations use the word sprinkle rather than the close to leap. From the Bible Works 8, the word Yise reference to Leviticus 6:27, Leviticus 16:14, and is translated as a sprinkle. The meaning of sprinkle in Coco dictionary, scatter or pour small drops of particles of a substance over. These were in preparation for the sacrifice of Christ. In his death, Christ will be sprinkled many nations. Isaiah 52:15, this one we are dealing now. Thus, cleansing the hearts of all the people who accept him and ending the necessity for ceremony sprinkle. In Hebrew 8, verse 13 to 14. Now, this verse fits perfectly at the end of the chapter because my chapter deals from verse 1 to verse 15. And this verse fits perfectly at the end of the chapter and appropriate connection from the chapter 52 to chapter 53. We know that chapter 53 is dealing with the Messiah's suffering, and that will be the prophecy will be point to Jesus, and Jesus is the one that's going to suffer. So this verse 15 fits perfectly here as a transition from 52 to 53, the flow of what is it called? Flow of the prophecies. Okay, verb analysis and translation. Now we come to this part. Okay, the translation I make for verse 1, you awake, you put on your strength, Zion, you put on your beautiful garment, Jerusalem, the sacred town for having foreskin and unclean will not come to you. This is very crucial. This is my literal translation. So as I can see here, I don't want to be like more of a smooth translation, but this one we can be referred to as we can you put on your beautiful garment, Jerusalem, because you are the sacred or the holy town for having foreskin. This one will be point back to the covenant that spoke by God to Abraham, that he need to be circumcised. So as you can see here, if you have any problem with my analysis, I'm sure there is a 5 minutes after my presentation, you can ask me, and then we're going to go over this one. Okay, let's move on. Verse 2. My translation is, shake yourself from the dust, you arise, you captive Jerusalem, you lose themselves the bond from your neck, captive daughters of Zion. We can see that verse 2, that shake yourself from the dust. What does it mean? It is the meaning of slavery. This is the meaning of captive or captivity. They were slave to other nation because of they disobedient God. And this one is like a prophet, prophecy to the nation of Israel. Hey, Israel, shake yourself from the dust. It's time for you to arise. It's time for you to move. So loose yourself from the bond of your neck, captive daughters of Zion. You know this part. When I do my presentation, I was like, oh my, this one is. I'm maybe one of them is inside this one. I am covering the past. I am staying where I am. So I need to shake the past off and arise. Arise! It's time for me to move to the next level. It's time for me to move from captive or bond of slave to freedom or to something that God is preparing for me. Let's move on. Okay, number 3. The translation for thus the Lord said, you were sold for nothing and you were redeemed without money. Now, this one is very interesting to me when I read this one. So the Lord is saying that we are sold for nothing. So many things that we have a decision to make for me and my own understanding about the thing. We are sold ourselves for nothing. We are not gaining anything. So when when Christ came and died on the cross, it's not a paying by the money, but it was paying by his blood. So it's redeemed with our money. That's money cannot buy that one. Money cannot pay that price that God has for us. Okay, let's move on to verse 4. For thus said God the Lord, my people went down first in Egypt to Jordan, then their Assyrian, he oppressed him without ceasing. A lot of things that happen here because the people of God or the nation of Israel, they went to Egypt and Assyrian, they are the one, they were like giving them, what's it called? They put them into slavery, but this one is God said that my people. It's very interesting that God, even though that we are slaves, even though that we are born because of our own disobedience and our own will to commit what is against the will of God, but this one is saying that God, the Lord, he said, my people. That's very interesting from there. It's my people. No matter what we are doing, no matter what we are dealing with, but all this, he mentioned us as his people. Um, I am sorry, this will refer to the nation of Israel, but we are saved by the blood of Christ, so we are inside that circle. Okay, let's move on. Verse 5, the translation I have here. What I have here for me, declared the Lord, for he taken my people for nothing. He will well, declared the Lord, and continually all the day my name for this place. We have to see here that what is God is looking. God is looking for his people. God is looking for his properties. God is looking for his asset. But the asset, they make their own decision to follow what they need to do. They follow their own decision, their own mindset, their own thinking, their own thought, what is right in their eyes. But God is looking for his own properties. Okay, let's move. Verse 6, therefore my people will know my name. Therefore, in all the day I am the one he's speaking. Here I am. This one, I can assume this verse from the book, from the text, that it's referred that God never changed. From the beginning to the present to the future and moving to the future, he is God. He is God. We're not gonna doubt that. Okay, verse 7. How beautiful upon the mountain, the feet of who brings good news, publish peace, peace, who brings good news of
Right? Okay, let's just wait for him. Is there any interesting point among the things that Albert mentioned about? How do you think, class? You're silent. And I told you that there is special points for the participation. So I got Phineas, Romero, Pierce, and who else? You need to really participate in this. So anyone want to just demand comments on the presentation today?
Yeah, more than anything, think about the order in which so in terms of just taking points from all three people who have been today. It's like taking the good aspects of each one, what order to do them in, how much time to spend on the textual criticism, just getting over the getting the important bits in the time frame, knowing what to concentrate on.
Yeah, I can see that. What about others? Are you familiar with this passage, Isaiah chapter 52? Okay. I think in terms of what is it, the choice of the passage, it's really bit hard. In this case, it's always good for the presenter to give some pre-knowledge, the information about the background and context and the summary of what is really going on would definitely help. So that is just for the practical tip. So you are developing your presentation skills too. So you can see various types of presentation from your classmates, and if you think, oh, okay, this guy is really good at presenting the textual criticism or what is the syntactical analysis, and you need to really learn from them. But today, I think it's a bit really bit hard, isn't it, to understand what Brother Albert is trying to really discuss, because he just jumps into the textual criticism issue without dealing with the context and content. In that sense, it's true. We are a bit struggling, but anyway, he's quite excited, and then he's good at delivering all the information about textual criticism. I'm glad to see that. Albert, let's just try to finish. Okay. So is it possible for you to just highlight things without showing your PowerPoint?
Sorry, my wait, man, my laptop is dead. I cannot see anything.
It's okay. Yeah, yeah. So let's just conclude. What are the things that you have learned and any exegetical significance, and can you help us to understand what is really going on in Isaiah chapter 52 as a general explanation? What is your understanding of Isaiah chapter 52? Uh, you need to unmute yourself, Albert.
Okay, for me, I might understand about the passage that I do my presentation on. It's about telling the Israelites what is going to happen to the nation, and what even though they are in captivity, they are taken captivity, but there is hope. There is hope. There is hope for them. God will restore them. God will restore them and they bring them back to where they belong. As I put on the textual criticism about the usage of the word Jerusalem and Israel, it's not God is not just saving the city. God is saving not only the city of Jerusalem, but God is going to save that nation of Israel. So for me and my understanding about the text, God is going to do something to save or restore his nation back to him. Even though that they were being captives and slaves, they're dealing with a lot of things, but that would be to show them how God is. That God doesn't want like anything like what I should say. God wants to be him alone, God alone, not no other gods before him. And that's why they were captive, because they disobey God. But there is hope. God will restore his nation back to him.
Okay, that's helpful to understand what is really going on. Now, I think if you could start from giving us general understanding of Isaiah chapter 52 in terms of what you just shared, it would be most helpful. But to be honest, when you just jump into textual criticism, we are a bit struggling to follow whatever you really want to highlight. But I think when it comes to textual criticism analysis, I think I like it, especially your attitude to deal with all those issues in relation to exegetical points. I can see that, and I think you are one of the best students when it comes to the analysis of textual criticism. But at the same time, I wish if you could do more in terms of the analysis of syntax and syntactical analysis. Okay, so but we haven't heard much about syntactical issues, and then the syntactical or clause analysis. Okay, last question. What would you like to really highlight as the main insight that you've learned? It's the same question. Before, you are not really aware of this, but what is the greatest finding through your study?
My greatest finding in this study that I can see that God, I can put it as a theme like God's love for his people will never fail. God's love for his people will never fail. Um, God will have like a second plan, to restore his nation back to him, to reconcile with his nation, to have fellowship with his nation. I am sorry that I didn't go to the syntactical issue and syntactical clause because my difficulty here, as I told you before, but that will be the significant things that I learned uh, from this passage that I do my study on. So yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting that you mentioned that God's love never fails, and he is always gracious, although people commit with the sin, but he always has a backup plan to restore the relationship, broken relationship. I think that's not really something new when it comes to the understanding of what is going on. Okay, but I believe you have a special reason why you put it that way. What makes you to find this theme relatively more significant than before? The way than the way you understood it. What are the parts? What are the elements that cause you to really see the value of God's never-ending, love and care? What are the specific components?
Can we rephrase that one, please, Professor?
Okay, so you just highlight the theme here. God's love, his second chance is always there, despite human, what is it, evil doings and sins. But okay, that what is the specific elements in terms of your study that makes you understand this significance? You said that textual criticism and syntactical analysis. What is the specific parts that really enable you to see this?
It, for me, I can start from the first verse when it says awake, awake. It's like it's time to move um, from slave to freedom. So this one is like to me, it's like a wake up call for the nation of Israel. That's um, the consequences of their disobedience to God is over. It's time for them to receive God's blessing. And that was fulfilled in chapter 53 when Isaiah was prophesied about the coming of the Messiah, and he is going to pay the price about the sins. So the sins that the nation of Israel they committed, God will put onto Jesus, not on them. It's over for them. It's time for them to enjoy freedom. It's time for them to enjoy blessing rather than to suffer from slavery or being captive.
Okay, right. Thank you. What about others? Any comments or any question?
Thank you, brothers.
Why did
Well, thank you for silence.
Albert, why did you choose
Pierce,
this one?
what did you ask?
No, why did he choose it?
This passage before, as you can see on our chat, I suggest that I'm going to work on Isaiah 53. But for me, reading this one, in order for me to understand 52, that will lead me as a bridge to go to understand 53. So for me, I don't really understand 53 unless I have to deal with 52. Even though that 52 got a lot of verses, then 53, I chose to go with this one because it's going to give me an understanding and also a solid foundation for me to understand what is going to happen in 53. And this one relates to me.
That's dedication, bro. Well done. And have fun with 53 when you get there.
Thank you, bro.
Good motivation to do your academic studies. So I think it's you didn't make a good choice. But a couple of things that I want to highlight. If others have no anything do you want to acknowledge? Well, as you said, it's quite interesting for us to see how this passage starts. Awake, awake. Okay. And then the way you interpret it is quite interesting. They are sleeping. Time to wake up. Okay. So they are staying in their dream. Okay. Which is not the reality. So it's quite interesting to see that when they are in captivity, that's the reality. But he is from the eyes of the prophet, saying that what they are going through in reality is not the true reality, but it is something that they are dreaming. Okay, that's something that they are experiencing in their dream. But it's time to wake up, and it goes to verse 2, and then it's quite interesting to see several verbs used in the form of imperative and hit pile stem. In verse 2, the major verbs were used in the hit pile stem, and hit pile stem normally has the connotation of reflexive meaning. So you do something for yourself. In order for them to wake themselves up, what they need to do, this is saying, shake yourself from the dust, rise up, and then it says, lose yourself from the chains. I like the expression, remove the chains of slavery from your neck. So, of course, though, the heat pile itself carries this reflexive meaning, which means you do something toward yourself. So I got an impression that God gave something already. And the only thing that we need to do is to just apply all those things to ourselves. If you really highlight the connotation of heat pile, then you can just deal with a lot of things. See, I'm trying to give you a technical tip regarding how to apply those technical knowledge in terms of Hebrew to your preaching or to the interpretation or application of your ministry or your study. So you need to really start trying to utilize your knowledge and bring them to the knowledge that can be applicable to um, the modern life. So I think it's quite interesting passage, especially in the beginning, verse 1 and 2. So see, when you do your study, try to use those knowledge, of grammars, syntactical analysis, and syntactical issues, and you will be able to deeply engage with something valuable, very insightful. Okay, so Albert, I think you
Yes.
highlight these too in your study today. Good job. So any last comments or any question from the student? No? All right. So then who will be presenting next Thursday? Uh, okay, Pinihas, Kanae, and who else? Is it Jim? Okay, so 3 of you. So I hope you will do your best. Okay, we're quite excited to see your presentation. Okay, please feel free to contact me if you have any question. All right, so God bless you. You did a good job. So see you on Thursday. Bye.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.